and I hope that members will consider it in due course.
Madam Chair.
I call Stuart Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thank all of the contributors to this debate, and it has been a very enjoyable and rewarding piece of legislation to work on, and the committee select committee stage was very collegial, as has already been mentioned. But I want to turn to the SOP in the name of David Seymour, and I won't go there in terms of what ACT policy is and ACT party principles. I will stick to the SOP. In terms of the cost, which has been referenced by several people, and particularly Mr Seymour, I have had some quotes, not from Lane and Neve, but from other legal firms, and I'm assured that the costs that Lane and Neve have come up with is pretty much where the costs were quoted back to me as well. However, what I want to point out is I don't want to spend other people's money for them unnecessarily, but I would like to point out that this bill will actually lower credit unions' costs in the long run because of the unnecessary need for trustees, and so it will be a much more efficient process for them, and that will save them more than that money quite quickly. So I don't accept the member's point. I would also like to point out that other pieces of legislation, all pieces of legislation that have come in that sector, have cost money, a one-off cost when they're implemented, and particularly Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Financing Terrorism Act, the Financial Markets Conduct legislation, non-bank deposit-taking legislation, all had far higher one-off costs on the introduction of those pieces of legislation. This is much smaller than that, but I do accept the point that we should not impose costs on people unnecessarily and sectors, and this one shouldn't. I think having a 26-page SOP dumped on the House at this point without an opportunity to really get close analysis of that SOP is really fraught with danger. And I think I would like to point out that Part 3A has many cross-references that won't work, and so that's an example of something that's not going to work in the bill. Provisions in Part 3A conflict with provisions in Part 3. So if this whole no, it's not the point, in fact. The legislation wouldn't work. So if the point of the SOP is to make the law unworkable, then it would pass, Mark, with probably an A+. But unfortunately, that's not the point here. So, Madam Chair, I think the SOP may well be well-intentioned to placate some credit unions that are unhappy with change, but change happens all over the sectors and around New Zealand, and people do have to change with it because the world has changed. These credit unions, under the provisions in the SOP, it's not clear how they would ever be able to incorporate in the future, nor is it clear how they would be able to amalgamate with other credit unions. So those credit unions would be damned to a small cul-de-sac in a legal sense, and would be the end of them in the not too near distant future. So thank you, Madam Chair.
I call David Seymour.
Madam Chair,